Testing 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3.
microphones.
Microphone's on.
All right, welcome everyone to the Richland Hills City Council work session for December 8th, 2025. First item will be executive session pursuant to the Open Meetings Act, Chapter 551, Texas Government Code, Section 551.074. Executive session may be held under these exceptions at any time during the meeting that a need arises for the city council to seek advice from the city attorney as to the posted subject matter of this city council meeting. Item A, deliberation regarding personnel matters, Section 551074, interim city manager appointment and city manager appointment. Need a motion to go into executive
Mayor, I
session.
move that we go into executive session.
Second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. 6:02.
And I read that they go quick.
All right, meeting is back in session. There was action taken during the executive session and that will be discussed at the appropriate time toward the latter part of the meeting. Next item is discuss items listed on tonight's city council agenda. No action will be taken and each item will be considered during the regular session. So tonight we have October department reports. Thought we'd go ahead and start with those, and if we have time, we could talk about items on the consent agenda as well. But development services with J.P. Duque.
Quite a ways away. Could you get there? Just keep going. Alright. There we go. Thank you, Mayor. Council, JP Duque, Development Services, presenting the department report for the Development Services Department. So we typically do kind of the prior month intake breakdown, but with it being the end of the year and the last meeting of 2025, I wanted to provide an intake breakdown for the entire year of 2025. As you can see, we brought in 236 mechanical, electrical, and plumbing permits, 33 new build permits, 204 building or remodel permits, 23 accessory structures, 19 driveway or approaches, 109 fences, 24 signs, 170 right-of-ways, and 83 certificate of occupancies. Of those 83, 53 were residential and 30 were commercial. And if you look at the pie chart, those are our general permits broken down in that pie chart. The previous ones were mostly the construction-related permits. We brought in over 195 garage sales, which was quite a bit. I know I mentioned signs and right-of-ways. There's also a handful of kind of plats, SUPs, and more zoning-related applications that we processed this year as well. And I broke those down with 2 SUPs, 1 zoning change, 2 site plans, and 1 replat. There was also 2 zoning variances and 1 special exception, which are the cases that would go forward to the zoning board of appeals. Now, there's only 3 cases this past year, and in my opinion, that's a good thing. I think whenever there are more cases going to the zoning board of appeals, that means that there are issues regularly that our residents or businesses are having with our zoning ordinance. And so the less that we have to bring a case to them and ask for a variance or ask for an exception to something, the better. I think when we're able to kind of work through those issues at City Hall and in person, that's always the best outcome that you can have. And we've definitely been doing a good job of that this past year. Now, some of the developments throughout the city that played a role in some of those intake numbers. First, with Richland Crossing, we had 52 single-family homes, 100% constructed, 100% sold as of today. And we are currently coordinating with the developer on getting some enhancements to the existing landscaping and cleanup of not only the site, but the parkway as well. So that area in between the sidewalk and where the development starts. We also have the Baker and Kreitz residential lots. Those are the 4 residential lots and the 1 commercial lot at the corner of Kreitz and Baker. We started off with 3244 Kreitz, which is the lot that is furthest south. They did begin construction. That was completed this year, and that property was sold in October of this year, which is great because that means that the developer will now start moving north and building one home after the next. And so the next address that we're looking forward to is 3248. I did speak with the developer today, and he's in the process of putting together those permits. However, he did mention that they are actually redesigning all of the next 3 homes to be more competitive with the market in this area. I think they had some issues selling that first one, and so they're kind of recalibrating and making sure that these next homes, while they will be consistent in look and general design as that first one, I think there will be changes that'll be different enough, like I said, to be more competitive with the market. And so,
JP,
yeah,
does
yes,
more competitive mean less expensive? or
less,
more
less expensive. I think there was some serious issues in the previous price of this one,
Okay,
and they had, ended up having to drop it over, I think, $50,000.
wow, okay.
Yeah. So they are in the, like I said, in the process of redesigning it, and so that's why there's a little bit of a delay in that next one. But they're hoping by the start of the new year we should see a new building permit and hopefully construction some point early next year for the next house. As for that retail end cap at the corner of Kreitz and Baker, bless you. We have been advertising that pretty aggressively, obviously because of the size of that lot. It's always been to drive-through oriented coffee and food brands with smaller building footprints. So some of the brands that we've reached out to haven't really had any solid traction yet, but have been actively trying to get in touch with them. Have been Scooters, Dutch Bros, 7 Brew Coffee, and Salad and Go. And there are a handful of others. I just didn't include them on the presentation. And so if there are any other brands, please feel free to provide their information to me. I'd be happy to obviously promote not only this property but others as well. We've also got Feel Great Car Wash at 7024 Boulevard 26. They've been open and operating since August of this year. And I spoke with their team this week, and they had informed me that out of all of their locations that they've opened in 2025, this was the second best performing one. They've already washed 30,000 cars, and they already have 2,500 active memberships. So pretty impressive numbers. They hope by this time next year they'll double the membership number to roughly 5,000. And as I mentioned, I have been in contact with their marketing team. I know they previously mentioned wanting to do a city initiated or involved ribbon cutting. They claim that they are still interested in doing so, but at a later date. So I know at a later date they may be operating at a year at that point. But that's at least what they informed me recently of. They also asked, whenever I was presenting some of this information, to let the community know that they're working on their first fundraiser at this location for a local girls football, flag football team to raise money to play at an out-of-state championship tournament in Las Vegas next year. We've also got Lane Glass, addressed at 6525 Baker Boulevard. So in April of this year, I'm sure all of you remember, City Council approved a specific use permit allowing for Lane Glass to operate out of the old OES and DPR building. Then by September 1st, they were already fully operating within that location, so a pretty quick turnaround. And then in November of this year, they began their first phase of improvements. So if you remember the SUP, I'm sure you remember the conversations about improving the property, improving the site. In November, like I said, they kind of started that first phase of that, and that included some new landscaping, some new signage, and some new lights throughout the development. And the landscaping, you can see, I took a picture of it. It's on the image on the top of the screen. The image on the bottom of the screen was what their previous landscaping was. And so that does run along that entire south side of the site. And mind you, that landscaping is roughly, I think, 2 weeks old. So give it some time, give it some, some water and some sun, and I'm sure it'll look a lot healthier. Now, that's, again, just the first phase of the improvements. They also mentioned that in spring of 2026, they are hoping to initiate that second phase of improvements, and that'll look like some additional paint to kind of add some, I guess, complexity to the building a little bit, a new roof or some roof work, and a new gate that they're going to be installing on their property as well. And that was an image that they provided as kind of a reference example of the areas of the building in which they're planning on painting to be representative of their logo and their colors. We've also got the 2525 Hanley Etterville Contractor Yard. This one is currently underway. We approved their site plan from an administrative perspective in August of this year, and then in October, we issued them their building permits. Utility and plumbing work have been completed, but they are currently, I think, in early stages of foundation work, which are underway today. And so once they are completed, which I think will be, a little ways away, if you do drive out to that site, you'll see 9 metal contractor warehouse buildings with 137 parking spaces and enhanced landscaping with some xeriscape landscaping as well throughout the development. Outside of developments specifically, there are a handful of projects that staff has been working on throughout the year. The first big one being the short-term rentals. So, it's been a lot of work between myself and some of the other members that I get to work with in the Development Services Department, trying to locate all of the short-term rentals throughout the community. In doing so, we found roughly 30 of them that we believe to be at least what we have had access to, and we've put them all into an Excel tracker in order to kind of manage them as we go. Efforts to contact all of the owners has been an ongoing process. Of the 30 or so that we believe to be active short-term rentals, we've made contact with 15 of them. Of the 15, we've received 11 complete applications, which we've received and are in the process of finalizing, which is a decent start. But obviously, we are continuing to try to coordinate with these remaining owners and get these remaining applications submitted to staff. We've also prepared some formal letters that we are planning to send out to all of the addresses that we have on record for the owners that we have on our track sheet. And in that letter, we'll obviously include our registration requirements, as well as the just general requirements for short-term rentals. And we also felt that it would be important to include some very specific language that talks about a date in which we are going to require that all of these short-term rentals are registered with the community. Otherwise, there could be some issues in which, we could then start to apply citations to them, or even feel the need to revoke their permits or not allow for them to go through a registration process if we feel as if they've been actively ignoring us throughout this time. Now, I did say that these letters have been prepared. They haven't been sent because we want to make sure that we are accurately accounting for all of these short-term rentals in the community. We've utilized all of our resources to track them, and we've had conversations with a couple of teams that their whole purpose, their whole profession is tracking short-term rentals. And they've provided us numbers that are different than what we have put together. And so that leads us to believe that there are more short-term rentals in the community than we've been able to find. Not only that, that means that we aren't technically accurately regulating all of the short-term rentals, but that means that we're also not receiving all of the hotel occupancy tax collections that we should be bringing in on an annual basis if we just start sending out these letters to what we have on file. And so there's obviously a lot of responsibility to make sure that we are accurately regulating these short-term rentals throughout the community. And so I think that's why it would be a benefit for for the Development Services Department to kind of work with a team who can help us manage these. And so we've been interested in entering into an agreement with a short-term rental management company, and we've currently been kind of coordinating with two of them over the past month and a half to kind of receive quotes on what it would cost in order to assist staff in managing them, and whatever those services will be included in that kind of agreement. So like I said, there's been two teams that we've been talking with. I've actually got another meeting with one of them tomorrow. We haven't received formal quotes yet, but the plan is to hopefully to receive very, very formal quotes, and then obviously kind of reconvene and make a decision if that's something that we want to move forward with. My assumption is that it's the preliminary numbers that I've seen have been anywhere from $5,000 to $10,000 annually. And so, we could be looking at anywhere from $20,000 to $30,000 annually from a hotel occupancy tax collection perspective. Now, that's obviously, if we are doing it on our own, we would have to assume that obviously that would be cut if we're going to be utilizing some of that money to pay for, these services. But realistically, there could be 35 or 40 short-term rentals in the community that we just don't have record of that these firms could help us with. And they would also ensure that we're not missing any monthly collections, because that is something that staff would have to be completely responsible for, and it's just a lot of moving parts. And so some of the things that these services could provide would be identification. So obviously the first thing, ensuring that they're finding all the short-term rentals in the community, then contacting and corresponding with them to then make sure that they are registering, going through the correct process with the city, annual renewals with the city, because we do require a renewal every year for our short-term rentals to make sure that they're still active and being used as such. Continued compliance, so just ensuring that they're not violating any of our basic codes throughout the year. Monthly remittance monitoring to make sure that if any of these short-term rentals are active, and let's just say we don't receive a check that month, that would be an issue. It'd be hard for us to keep track and know if we should be receiving a check that month. Well, this service would be able to do that for us. And then lastly, of course, just annual and monthly HOT collection. So again, ensuring that we are receiving the correct amount of hotel occupancy tax collections, not only on a monthly, but an annual basis, maximizing our revenues and safety regulation for all of the short-term rentals in the community. So that's kind of where we're at with the short-term rental phase.
Can I?
Y'all go ahead.
One comment, JP.
Yes.
So, one of those companies you may be talking to is the company I talked to at TML. They thought that the revenue we should be receiving, the hotel occupancy tax revenue we should be receiving is somewhere in the neighborhood of 70,000.
70,000?
Yeah.
So I've got a meeting with them tomorrow.
Okay.
And I'm gonna have the conversation. One of the, so I've met with two other firms as well, and the numbers that I've gotten were anywhere from 30 to 40. And so I'm gonna,
Okay.
I plan on having a more detailed conversation to see where those numbers are coming from, but I would venture to guess that that's a number, the amount of short-term rentals that they believe are actively in the community, and that's just making sure that they're utilizing the correct boundary, and we can come to an agreement, I think, at some point, but yes.
So, yeah, so this list, I can't really read it on the screen here. That's not printed in our packets, right? I didn't see it anywhere.
No, this is just in the presentation.
Okay, so I can't tell you where these are, I have no idea, because I can't read it. But, isn't there a way that because we've all heard the horror stories on STRs, and, I mean, is there any way that we can take STRs and, I'm not saying target them, but is there a way that we can make them a priority for code compliance? These short-term rentals, because they get out of hand really fast.
Well, I think the first stage is making sure that we recognize where all of them are. And so we've obviously kind of started that. And now that we know where they are, I think if we do start to receive complaints and issues regarding them, then I think it can easily become more of a priority from our code compliance team.
Well, so typically, short-term rentals, and I heard this from Roland speaking before too, if you keep your property in bad shape, you're not gonna get those 5-star reviews, and then you're not gonna get any clients. So it's up to them to make sure that they look livable for the guests that come and stay. I don't know if those are our biggest problems, but they're certainly worth looking into. I mean,
I think
something,
long-term rentals are probably more.
long-term, for sure,
Sure they are.
yes.
But I
So-
think, yeah, there's LTR or STR. I mean, I've seen enough and heard enough to think that there's just somehow they just need to be on like a priority list for compliance, at least for a while.
I think it's something that you all could look into, and once you get that, this isn't the exhaustive list, but
No.
one of my questions too is, some of these people are dodging us right now, dodging you, obviously, because they don't want you going back and saying, you owe us 3 years' worth of money.
Yeah, we had no
Can we
intention
go back
of,
and get money from them?
well, I
Because they
think,
haven't followed the rules, so.
so I think the soonest, or the quickest that we could go back retroactively would be once we understood that they were aware of the policy. And so
Okay.
the dates of the letters would be as far back as we can go, which wouldn't be 3 years, because we haven't even had a policy in place until earlier this year.
Okay,
Isn't our policy effective the 31st, or isn't it effective in January?
No, so are you talking about this language that's right here?
Yeah, well.
So this is what I'm talking about, of sending a letter that
Not the
essentially,
registration process.
Yes.
but our when did we?
I
when did
believe
we
it's-
start short-term rental?
it was somewhere in January of 2025.
Oh, okay.
so that's like somebody puts up a
retroactively.
new,
We're a year.
Yeah,
somebody puts up a new fence and say, well, I didn't know that was code.
yeah, well,
We made somebody tear a fence down because of that.
absolutely.
So just because they aren't aware of it,
Yes.
doesn't mean that they're not responsible to know the law.
Totally agree.
Responsibility always falls on ownership of the
So I think
property.
back to January of last year or so is where we ought to be looking, if that's legal to do.
Be happy to
Sure
look into
sounds
it.
like it is, so.
And I think we'll definitely have a lot of assistance in ensuring that, you know, with these continued conversations,
Yeah.
with some of these firms who can help us with that, and pretty greatly.
JP, can you also find out, when you bring this back to us?
Yes,
The cost of that help that you're wanting to get,
Mhm.
from whichever one you pick, can you also put it versus how much you believe that we might receive
annually?
in those hot taxes, so we can
Absolutely.
kind of see? And then will there also be an added permit revenue if we do find more?
Yeah, I mean, that one will be pretty easy to do the numbers on, because it's like $150 for the first, $100 annually for every renewal. And so, you know, 150 times whatever the number of short-term rentals that we get registered.
Okay,
If I understand right, you're not sending out the letters because you may be engaging a firm? and it
Correct.
might have been duplicate work?
Correct.
Given the soonest we can engage a firm is probably February?
I think it could be much sooner than that.
No, should be January.
Yeah.
No, it's gotta come here. We gotta vote on it.
Right. We have 2 meetings in January, so
So,
let's get it in place.
I second that. I'm just wondering if it would make sense to get the 30 we know of, or the 15 that haven't responded, get them information.
It sounds
And
like
basically
JP's
put 'em on
in
notice.
the business of picking somebody before Christmas.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
kinda get
That's,
the-
that's the plan.
You don't want to kind of do it halfway here and then all of a sudden
Right.
full bore.
Yeah,
So let's just make it consistent if we can, provided you can find somebody pretty quick.
That was the thinking. It seemed like it was going to be kind of, one approach and, then we'd
Right.
have somebody else doing the same work again over. But yeah, kind of a two-pronged approach didn't seem as effective as making sure that we're handling them systematically one by one.
All right, good deal.
The North Central Texas Council of Governments has an EV grant that they were promoting all of this year, and it was offering approximately $12 million in grant funding for electric vehicle charging stations in the 16-county region. The purpose of this grant was to add roughly 100 publicly accessible EV charging ports across the region, specifically focusing on filling gaps in the existing infrastructure network. And so some of the criteria was that it had to be publicly owned property. And so in our particular case, the Link City Hall site was kind of an ideal location. And so again, in October of this year, we submitted a formal project application requesting funds for new EV charging spaces to be installed within the City Hall Link kind of compound in that parking lot. And the image on the right side of your screen, you can see this is the site plan that we submitted that shows the general location of where we were proposing that these could be located, which would be 2 L2 charging stations with 4 EV parking spaces or stalls. And today, actually, the COG held a public meeting to discuss grant award recommendations. There were 109 sites that were submitted, and only 59 received a recommendation for funding. Richland Hills was recommended for funding, which is great news. Now, that is not a guarantee. Obviously, it's a recommendation. However, that is a really, really good sign whenever you are recommended by, obviously, COG staff to their board. And so I even located our little green dot on that image in the map on the right side of your screen. This was a part of their presentation. I believe that's supposed to be our dot, and that is where all those green dots are the areas that are being funded for this project. And then just to be sure, they also specifically mention us in this graph or this chart at the bottom that shows all of these cities that are going to be recommended for this funding, and you can see where we are highlighted in red.
That says one.
Yeah, so that means that we submitted one site
Okay.
for funding, which would be obviously this parking lot.
now will this be a cost to us also?
20%. So obviously it'll come down to the final numbers, but the early numbers that we submitted were around 103,000 for the total project. 20% of that would be around $20,000.
Okay, but we don't get no revenue from that,
I think you're talking about money from the,
the EV stations.
No, I don't know. EV charging doesn't collect revenue other than obviously hoping that it's generating traffic to the community, and it's a use not only for our link, our library, but any of the businesses and restaurants that are nearby as well.
I'm sorry, I just always thought they charged for those stations, so I wasn't real for sure.
I can confirm, but I was not under the impression that there would be a fee associated with that charging.
it is something, JP, that, well, yeah, if we get it, it helps us put us a little bit marketing competitive edge. I like it.
Our EV driver isn't here, but I'm sure that, I agree with him.
There are a lot of people that got waitlisted too, it looks like.
Absolutely, there was
So-
quite a bit of waitlisting and then a handful of projects that were denied outright. And so
Right.
it was definitely great to see that they felt as if our project, there was a need in our area.
Good
And-
work, thank you.
Absolutely. And then general timeline, moving forward. Obviously, today was December 8th, so this was their public meeting. Then in January 8th, they will do an approval of the awards. Then January 22nd, their